This episode is going to inspire you and it's going to give you hope. Now, oftentimes when a person is diagnosed with cancer, they're afraid, but it doesn't have to be that way. These stories are going to show you that there is life after a cancer diagnosis. These cancer conquerors are actually healthier and happier after they've made it through cancer. This episode will inspire you. It will give you hope. This is our gift to you. So sit back and enjoy the episode.
I don't think I have the ability to put it into words. It is so amazing, so humbling, so awesome to go. I've been blessed. I've been given a second chance. I took the road less traveled, and that has made all the difference.
And he really took it. He walked the walk, walked the talk, and made the changes, changed the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And he went for it, 110%.
And I can tell you this, he may have been 2 years old, but if you say Dr. Tony, he knows exactly who we're talking about. Because Dr. Tony is a hero and revered in our home. That's pretty amazing, huh? You go, a 2-year-old. You know you have arrived when a 2-year-old remembers you and goes, Dr. Tony. Oh yeah, Dr. Tony in Mexico. And he does know when you were there getting treated because you were sick. He doesn't know the cancer, he doesn't know the gravity of it, but he knows that you were really sick. But putting it into words, it's so heartfelt, it's so emotional for me to go. When I walked in here today, I walked around, I went outside and just, that's how I felt. And then it was just, thank you. Thank you.
There's perhaps no better way to express gratitude for the people that have helped you recover and thrive after cancer than just to say thank you. You'll find that with every survivor, there's a strong motivating factor, someone or something to live for that pulls them through the dark and fearful times. For Michael, having a young son that needed a father was more than enough to have him fight for his life. What a beautiful gift to know this loving family continues living life and enjoying each other. For other survivors, we have seen that they, in fact, have their entire life ahead of them. Jared, known as the Kid Against Chemo for his popular social media following which resulted from his brave stand against harmful conventional treatments, tells his story of how his first news of cancer was a death sentence to him, being told that there was only one option for him, and if he didn't comply, that he would die, and his death would be excruciating. This is how he conquered.
I didn't really know too much about cancer or chemo, and I didn't think that there was much of a cure for cancer. So I thought cancer pretty much just meant death right on the spot. I did one full cycle of chemo, and then all the side effects were just so severe. I had really bad mouth sores throughout my whole GI system. I had really bad bone pain. I couldn't stand, I couldn't walk. My parents had to help me walk to the bathroom and back. I could barely use the my phone with the TV remote because my hands were just like almost like cramping from the bone pain. Eventually, I just felt in my heart and soul that I was gonna die in the next round because all those side effects were killing me. We went in to get the PICC line taken out, and then I said I was done. I didn't want to do chemo anymore, and they explained to me how it would be like to die if I didn't do chemo. They said that it would feel like I was drowning underwater. They asked if I ever I felt like I was holding my breath underwater, and they said that it would be like that, except I wouldn't come up for air.
So they're trying to, it sounds like they're trying to scare you.
Trying to bully me.
To bully you into doing chemo after you told them you don't want to, telling you if you don't, you're going to eventually suffocate like you're drowning if you don't do chemo. So you decide against chemo.
Right.
And that's, you're known now as Jared, the Kid Against Chemo. That's how we first learned about you is
Yeah.
on Facebook, Kid Against Chemo. So you decided not to do any more chemo. And what did you do at the point? You said, I'm not going to do chemo, but I am going to do this. What did you decide to do for your cancer at that point?
I just decided to do all alternative methods, from vitamins, supplements, the infrared sauna, eating all organic, juicing all raw vegetables.
Okay. Sounds kind of like Chris' work.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what Chris did.
Exactly.
So you're about a year out now. How are you feeling?
I feel great. The last blood test we took, all my cancer markers were normal.
Okay.
All my blood tests were normal, and everything was just normal and great.
It almost sounds too simple. How could Jared's situation have been so dire, and now he's cancer-free, showing normal results from his blood tests? Well, this young man's example has shown us all that if we trust that we can be healed, and we use the best non-toxic cancer protocols, that cancer can be conquered. My family and I are inspired by Jared and his amazing mother, by their diligence and their bravery, and we know that Jared has an amazing future ahead of him. Sometimes when people grow up in a healthy setting with a different way of eating and living than the majority, it can get easy to take their health for granted. With many of us, it's not until something's gone terribly wrong that we wake up to see what we've done to our bodies, due either to neglect or allowing harmful substances to enter. Our next story begins when Jordan Rubin, who grew up in a family taking a strong stand on health-related issues, found himself with a series of chronic illnesses due to something that his parents warned him against, which he believes led to a decline that resulted in cancer. Wait till you find out what began this downward spiral and what he had to do next.
Well, I started in my journey into natural health from day one. I was born at a naturopathic university. My father was a naturopathic student at the National College of Naturopathic Medicine outside of Portland, Oregon. I like to say I was born with a silver sprout in my mouth. Okay. So in the 70s, eating healthy, cleansing, detoxification, chiropractic was not commonplace. However, my parents were nonconformists. I guess you could call them hippie health nuts in the 70s. So they started in Kansas and then moved to Oregon to follow the school. And my dad was all about natural health. I think for fun, they would all take activated charcoal and measure each other's transit times. But you know what I'm talking about. This was way before anything was accepted. It was definitely outside of the norm, so to speak. So I was born at a naturopathic university, wasn't vaccinated, was really ushered into the natural health movement. But as a child, I only thought about what I couldn't do, what my restrictions were. The health foods back in the day were very limited. I think we had seaweed, there was wheat germ brewer's yeast, and all manner of soy products. Nothing like today. No big health food stores. Everything was small and niche. However, growing up, having a healthy constitution was part of my life. When I was 15 years of age, I was threatened by my school that if I was not vaccinated for measles, mumps, and rubella, I would be suspended. My father said, take the suspension, it's not worth it. One little needle and a second of time may have contributed to my diagnosis of Crohn's colitis 3 years later. And it was in the midst of a very fun and successful college career that I was blindsided by these digestive and immune system issues. And I went from 185 pounds at nearly 6'1", college athlete, just on fire for God, on fire for life, to being bedridden, suffering for 2 years with now 18 medical conditions. I had diabetes, I had symptoms of rheumatoid arthritis, parasites, fungal infection, bacteria, a lot of what is now implicated in the disease that we collectively call cancer. And nearly a year later, I met a man who taught me how to eat and live like the Bible says. It's really the Bible meets history, meets modern science. And out of that experience of 40 days, just living and eating the way our ancestors did, the way my ancestors did, I overcame my diseases. In just 40 days of what I later call the Maker's Diet 40-day health experience, I not only got well, but I had a new mission in life. I went from having a certain path to knowing that my life was going to be about helping others either overcome disease or better yet, avoid it. And out of that, I started a company called Garden of Life, where we manufactured whole food nutritional supplements. Later would write 25 books on health and wellness, and recently became an organic farmer, and now I'm really on a similar quest to you. I'd love to see this disease, this group of challenges and attacks on our body that we call cancer, be ameliorated, and I believe it can. But nothing prepared me for the shock in 2008 that I received. Now, I had written books, not only The Maker's Diet, but an entire series on specific health issues and diseases, including the great physician's prescription for cancer. I helped my own grandmother have a great result with cancer, and I've coached thousands of people over the years. But in 2008, due to a surgery that I should have had at birth, at least my parents should have considered it, I was led into something in 2008 that once again changed my life forever, and it was a cancer diagnosis. And Ty, I was really at a crossroads, because here I was helping, in my mind, be part of the solution, and all of a sudden I was not only dealt the blow of a cancer diagnosis, but I had to deal with, like so many others, the waiting game of, have we gotten it all? Has it spread? I had what they call an exploratory surgical procedure in my pelvic cavity, thinking it was a hernia, and it ultimately was an advanced form of embryonal testicular cancer. Now, the reason being for me is I had an undescended testicle that was never operated on, that lodged in my pelvis, not knowing there was a 1,000-fold increase in cancer risk, and here I am thinking it was a surgical procedure for an inguinal hernia, or what they call a sports hernia, and instead I was given a cancer diagnosis. The doctor walked back in, my wife and I were sitting there, and he said, "You have a fast-growing form of cancer." And he said, "There's treatments now that can help you. Years ago, this cancer killed everyone who was diagnosed with this progressive state." And I said, "Doc, God's going to heal me, and I need time. I need time to attack this." And he said, "I was afraid you would say that. I looked you up online. I know who you are." And he said something I won't say on camera, but he said, "Don't blank around with this. If you wait for conventional treatment, you'll be dead within 3 months. 100% chance."
Diagnosis is 100% chance of death. Wow, by definition, you can't get any worse than that, can you? Now, what would you do if you were told that? We're going to come back to Jordan in a moment, and I'm going to show you exactly what happened next. But before we do that, I want to share with you a story from Jill Schneider, who, when diagnosed with cancer that was told she must immediately commence on what she understood to be an extremely toxic and harmful treatment, she chose another direction. She chose to do something entirely different.
I just looked at the doctor and I said, "I think this is something that I need to do some research on and begin a program of nutrition." And he looked at me as though I was completely off the wall, and he slammed the door in my face. And I just walked out of the doctor's office, and I knew I never wanted to see that person again. That evening, I had to perform. I'm a singer, songwriter, guitarist, on a radio station. From the time I had the appointment and found out that I had malignant cervical cancer until I sang that night, because I knew I couldn't sing if I had fear. Gave it up. Gave up all the fear. What point would it have in my life at that moment? And shortly after that, I quit a job. It was very stressful. I knew I had to leave the country just to have the time to take care of myself. So a month later, after a month of acupuncture and herbs, it had already gone, I had another test, it had already gone to a number 3. I said, "I'm clear. This is a piece of cake. I'm off to South America. I'm going to hang out in the jungle for a while and then go down to Peru and do some hiking, Machu Picchu, 1975.
So you already saw progress within a month.
Yeah.
And then you left?
Yeah, then I left to go and really, have a real health vacation.
Okay.
I went to hot springs, I hiked in the mountains, I ate their food, I lived. So immediately, as soon as I got home, I was responsible. I went to the doctor, and it went from a 5 to a 1 in 5 months.
Okay.
And 2.5 years later, I had a child, and now I'm a grandmother of 2 little girls.
Wow. Congratulations. Seeing Jill smile and laugh like that puts a huge smile on my face and gives me so much joy. I feel happiness for her, but the thing that I really feel the most happy about is that no matter what your situation is, whether you've been faced with a critical diagnosis or you simply don't want to live in fear of cancer, you can do the same thing. A seemingly dreadful diagnosis can actually be a wonderful wake-up call and allow you, like Jill, to really focus on what's important and look after and care for yourself so that you can experience the joy of long-lasting health and happiness. For Enoch, a cancer diagnosis prompted him to search his soul to find what was his unique cure. While he was in turmoil, as anyone would be, he approached his cancer diagnosis with an acceptance and a determination that really amazed me. It seems there are so many different solutions, but to choose the wrong one could mean death, and this situation alone has left people paralyzed with indecision and unable to find their true path. In the face of suffering and potential death, Enoch grasped onto a faith and developed a wholehearted trust that led him on a unique path that will surprise you.
2009, I came down with basal cancer. It was on my...
You had basal cell carcinoma?
Yes, I did. And they, on my cheek, between my eyes, and on my arm, they did biopsy, come back positive. When I went to the dermatologist, I knew I had it in 2009. I didn't go to 2010. The one in between my eyes wouldn't stop bleeding. So I talked to, went to my chiropractor friend, Linda Force, fantastic woman. I've known her for many years. Precious woman of God. And she's one of the best chiropractors I've ever been to. She's got a big practice in Canton. And her name is Linda Force. And she's got the force, I tell you, to work with people in chiropractic. And she loves the Lord. And she says that's where the force comes from. And I agree with her. I'm sure you do too. But she says, Enoch, you need to get that checked up. She said, I think you got cancer. I said, yeah, I know it is. I can't imagine me getting cancer. But I said, but you know, I've had so many poisons all throughout my life, all these toxins. So it's probably hit me, you know, because I was going through a stressful time. 2008, the bottom dropped out. Had been audited with the IRS. They did some things to me that we won't repeat. I went to the dermatologist that Linda recommended, was a friend of hers. And she looked at me and she had me take my shirt off. She checked my body over. She says, normally I have my clients come in once every quarter. She said, you're going to be coming in every 3 weeks. I said, I'm that bad? She said, you're that bad. I said, wow, you got me by surprise. She says, let's send these out and see what it is. And so I went back. The test was positive. And I says, what can I do to help? She says, not a thing. She says, basically, this is from all the sun that you got over the years.
So there's nothing, she said nothing you could do?
She said there's nothing that I could do. She said the damage is done. And I said, what happened if I don't get the surgery? She looked at me very seriously. She was a young gal, little bitty thing, you know, and she had a nurse in there. She says, if you don't get this done in 6 months, you'll be totally blind. And 12 months from that, you'll be a dead man. I said, for sure. She says, yeah. I said, thank you. And she set up an appointment for the surgeon. I said I would go see him. I walked out of there and I shook my head. I said, I'm not buying it. I went home, I got on my knees. I said, Father, you know the results of the test and everything. I says, you're in charge of everything, you created me. I says, I am not gonna have them cut up my face. I says, I'm ready if you're ready. If it's my time, I said, I've been ready for a long time. I said, I enjoy living, I enjoy sharing the good news, and I love people, you know that. I said, but I'm not gonna be cut up. I said, so either please give me the wisdom, what I can do my part so you can do your part. And right after prayer, all of a sudden I had ginger came to my mind. Ginger and hot peppers and all that, you know. And nobody's ever told me about this, right? So I went and I got a bunch of organic ginger. I got habaneros, jalapenos, and there was a couple other hot peppers at the time, Tabasco pepper and another one. And I cleaned them, chopped up the ginger. I had no directions, no recipe. And I put that in. As soon as it hit a boil, I turned it down to brew, you know, just simmer. After 30 minutes, I found myself putting these peppers in there, and I cleaned them and I chopped them up, seeds and all. And for about 10 minutes, and then I stopped it, let it cool it off. I put it in a blender, and I ground them all up. And I took it off the lid, and it about blew me back. I mean, it did really. It took my breath away. It was powerful. So I put that in a jug, and I had about a half a gallon of it. And I filled it up with filtered water, and I tried it. About burned my tongue off. And I cut it, and I added some other stuff to it. I put cilantro in it, but I put it in as I drank it. And I had that as a stock, and I'd take it and cut it each day when I use it. And I would take it for my workout. I go to the gym. And I noticed that it gave me a kick, you know.
Kick 'em juice.
And I named it right then and there. I said, man, this is Kick 'em juice.
So this kick 'em juice, is this what you attribute to curing your cancer?
So this kick 'em juice is what I felt the Holy Spirit inspired me to make, and the bleeding stopped within days. It healed and filled up completely. And I went to I just started taking it within 2 days. I went to the surgeon because I was scheduled to go there. And he was a tall, about 6'8", young Jewish man. I really respected him. He was very respectful. When he came and he saw me right back, nurse came, I said, what a doctor, he's really fantastic. And she says, his wife's just like this. She come in with precious people. So he came back in, he measured me, and he tried to prepare me in a gentle way. You know, he says, we'll do this at first, and maybe we don't have to do radiation or chemo or that, you know. And I said, how long do I have that I can wait before we do this? He says, well, I wouldn't go more than a month. I said, okay, I'm going to take that month. I said, I'm trying something new. He said, okay. He said, you'll survive for a month. He said, we could contact you in about a month. So sure enough, they contacted me a little after a month. And I said, I won't be coming in. I don't think I'll need it. I said, it's all calmed down. I don't have any problems, you know. I said, I think the good Lord touched me and healed me.
In order to demonstrate the truth about the forceful nature of conventional cancer treatments, I felt compelled to share with you this story. A story of a family who is currently having their rights violated. You're about to hear the story of a young child who has been forced chemotherapy.
When the doctor came in and said, Jonathan, we're going to go and we're going to put a port within you. You've got cancer and you need to be hospitalized for the next few weeks. He confidently walked over to me and said, Mama, don't let him do this to me. Mama, don't let him take me away. I don't know if you have children, but I know that any mama or papa that is listening to my words now, I know they can identify with that feeling of helplessness. Imagine looking at your son. He just got the notice that he had cancer just moments before. And there's nothing I can do. There's nothing that I can say that will change the outcome whatsoever. We had a choice at that point. But I can't emphasize to you enough how very much it felt like we were just cattle being processed through the system. I live 7 miles from the Mexican border. Every day, I wondered if I cross over, could I change and have a positive influence in the outcome of this situation that my son at 5 years old is facing? I have 7 other children besides Jonathan. And I'm afraid it's the greater of the whole, if you will, at this point, than it was for the one individual. And at some point, I always felt like there was a hope. Quite honestly, I didn't believe that the doors were closed to shut so tightly as they were. I truly thought that I would have a voice. I knew about integrative medicine. I knew there was herbal remedies and options. I did not know that pediatric cancer was so different. It is completely a different animal. It is a nightmare. You have no voice. You have no say. Every day when I go in and I hand my child his chemo, I have to remember that it's me that signed on that dotted line, that they form, that they make you sign. And it's me that's handing it to my child every single day. I know the end result is that my child will come out. Our hope is that our child will come out a healthy individual. Is there a way that we can accomplish this without violating everybody involved? I understand that they are experts in the field that they are experts in. I understand that they speak a language that is different than me. But should it be that I don't have a voice, that we don't consider other options, that we don't listen to other people, that we listen to Jonathan? It's a horrifying, helpless experience that I wish on no one.
I'm so glad that Pam and her incredibly brave son have stood up against a giant system and are willing to let their voices be heard and put their lives on the line so that other children will not have to face this travesty. Your support today contributes to the livelihood of this child and his mother, as they have seen the hundreds of thousands, even millions, that they have inspired, proving their suffering is not in vain, but rather they are an integral part of educating, exposing, and finally eradicating this cancer pandemic. Have you ever been in a situation where you've been misdiagnosed? I guess that would be a little bit worse than being misunderstood, wouldn't you agree? Though I'm sure you would feel misunderstood as well as totally confused and have a total lack of trust. What would it feel like to be diagnosed with allegedly terminal lung cancer, then the diagnosis changes to lymphoma, and you're told that chemo is your only chance of survival, but later you're diagnosed again with Legionnaire's disease and finally sarcoidosis? It would almost sound like the doctors were just rolling the dice with their diagnoses, wouldn't it? But this is exactly what happened to Dr. Morten Hekneby from Norway. When this happened a few years ago, it was a devastating blow not only to Morten, but also to his wife Jackie and their entire family. As the doctors noticed Morten dramatically declining in his health, the family was left with no choice but to gather around his bed not once, but twice, to say their final goodbyes. Morten's health would have continued to decline, and the family would definitely have said their final goodbye if it weren't for this one dramatic change that shifted everything in his fate.
I got very high inflammation, CRP.
C-reactive protein.
C-reactive protein. And it was really high, and my blood pressure went down, and I was resuscitated one time in the hospital. Just 1 week after they let me go from the hospital.
So they thought you were gone a few times. Did you ever get the family together and say, hey, Dad's not going to make it?
Aware, we never thought about death. I don't know why, but in the 6 months, Morten was only 55 and never been ill before, we actually didn't think about him dying. It wasn't until 2 days before Christmas they called Morten in for a meeting when they said that this could be literally only 3 months to live. It's so complicated, it's been in the body for many years, because it really came up on the PET scan all over the body. They literally said, well, we'll call you in a week's time and see the results, tell you the results of the PET scan. They called 8 a.m. next morning to get to your doctor before 9.
And it was lightening up all over my body, except the brain. So they thought I had metastasis all over, in the bone marrow, lymph system, lungs, all over.
So how is it that you're standing here with us in Amsterdam today? Why are you alive? What happened?
That's you can tell that story because you are the reason for it, and you are actually a reason for it too. Yeah. You're the main reason, actually.
It's quite crazy, really, because when the doctors basically gave up, Morten was just getting worse and worse over that period he was in their care. After the last visit to the hospital with a biopsy, you were really bad. You weren't producing enough white blood cells, you didn't produce any hormones, your heart was beating irregularly.
I got chronic obstructive lung disorder, of course, I have that now. I got jumping heart, atrieflimmer.
Okay.
And it's a lot of diagnosis.
You had no energy at all, absolutely no energy. You couldn't take a single conversation, couldn't walk down the stairs, nothing. You said walking down the stairs on Christmas Day was like running several kilometers.
Yes.
That, when it hit us that Morten was dying, and it hit so hard, I had no idea. I wasn't prepared. So the first day I just screamed like a pig that had been stuck, with a dagger, and the kids was clinging to me. The second day I went out in the garden and I just prayed, because I've done it before when we had a crisis with the children before. I said, Lord, I just need you. You're just going to have to guide me. And I felt the Lord say, put Morten on a chair and get the family to pray. So I gathered the family, and we're quite a big family, so everyone laid hands on Morten and we prayed, and we all felt peace, which was very strange in that situation. When you have peace, you're able to think straight. And then I remembered your book, and I hadn't thought about that for the whole 6 months Morten was ill, because the doctors were taking care of him. But when they were out the picture, I picked up the book, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I picked it up and I opened it up and I read, if you've been given a diagnosis of terminal cancer, you've still got a 90% chance of survival. I've never found that again since. But when I read that to you, it's like the blood came back into your veins. It gave hope. I just started by saying to Morten, okay, I'm going to give it a go, give it a shot. We'll start with no sugar today, and no alcohol, and keep off the white flour. That was over the 2 days of Christmas, then the shops opened. And I literally took everything out of the cupboards,
all the food, all the skin products, hair products, and I put them on the front door and I put on Facebook that anybody wanted them, they could come and get them. And I went down to the health shop and I was restocked with everything organic. And our second daughter, Roseanne, she just dropped everything to be my right hand. And I really think it took 2 people, full-time job, to do this. And people need to know that it's a lot of work. And then I remembered what you had to do with the food. So I literally made a list for my daughter of the food that's supposed to be cancer fighting, like garlic and ginger. And Roseanne made a plate of lovely food. We started off with a Budwick diet in the morning, then this plate of raw food that you had to chew. She made it look beautiful, but it was pretty awful, some of it. And then in the evening, she made an Indian curry out of all these ingredients that were cancer fighting. So I started to talk to this Dr. Mike Farley. I don't know if he likes his name mentioned or not. That's okay. And I learned a lot from him. And he just gave everything to help me with Mom. He'd made a herbal mixture.
Dr. Farley developed Life One.
Yeah, Life One was, well, it had cured, was it 3,000 terminal cancer and AIDS patients in 8 years with that? And he thought he was going to get a medical prize for it, but he wasn't very popular when he made it. It took about a month to get it into Norway because of the toll system. Okay. It's really, really strict in Norway.
But it worked.
It worked, didn't it?
And he was a fantastic support.
That was amazing.
We were talking sometimes, and he was
amazing.
He was amazing.
He gave
amazing
everything.
Person.
We're still in contact with him. But basically, really, honestly, 4 days after I changed the products out, you started to feel stronger, less pain, breathing easier.
4 days is all it took to see a difference.
More power.
We all saw it and you felt it,
yes.
But your eyes were still really yellow. At the time, Morton said, "Are my eyes yellow?" And I said no, because I knew that if he knew his eyes was yellow, he would understand the seriousness of the situation. So I didn't tell him, but I didn't know if I had the time. I could see it was working, but I really didn't know if I had the time. So every night when we went to bed, I wasn't sure I wouldn't be awake in the morning. It was that bad. We didn't get in Life One for a month, but basically, this process, Morton went back to work in 2 months.
And the core in it was the information from your book.
Yeah.
And that strengthened you up, you strengthened me up, and we changed the diet totally.
Oh, we were totally 100%
and that
strict.
Made me go from 3-4% energy to
60.
No, 20%. But that was huge difference.
In 4 days.
In 4 days.
Yeah.
And I knew I would live.
By 2 months, you're about 60%, I think, if you remember correctly.
And within 2 months, he was back to work.
Yeah, it wasn't 100% at all, but you're probably up to about 60%. And I was thinking, there must be more to this. We can do more than this. And that's when you called me in May 2013 and told me about the Moringa product. And it takes time to understand that product, even if you know a lot.
Well, I mean, it's a product that has just amazing amounts of nutrition.
Yeah, that's right. It's just, and the body can take it out 90-95%, right?
Yeah.
So I got it in the country and I saw the difference it made in Morton, and I started taking it myself, and it completely changed my life as well. Morton has never had any medication since I took over, and it's now gone how long? 2.5 years?
And I'm very often thinking of if I had taken cell postmortem chemotherapy or cortisone, I think I wouldn't live today.
Throughout this docuseries, hopefully you have come to realize that 95% of cancers have no genetic link and can be turned around with a multitude of advanced cancer protocols. This fact alone can put a lot of control back into your hands so that you do not feel at the whim of cancer's dreaded strike. But what about the other 5%? What if your cancer actually is genetic and has no cure from conventional medicine? Is this an area where even practitioners who use a natural or non-toxic approach offer no assistance? I can tell you right now that people are dying without hope today from this very issue. This is exactly the boat that Chris Peterson found herself in when she was diagnosed with a rare genetic form of colon cancer. We pick up her story after she had dozens of precancerous and cancerous polyps removed from her colon when she was still in the thick of the battle fighting for her life.
And in March 2009, my husband brought home a book that I read cover to cover, and it was Vern Verona's Nature's Cancer Fighting Foods. And I embraced everything in that book. And the next day, after I had my cry pity party, I can't do this, I changed my diet. The next day, I'm very disciplined. I got that from my dad, very disciplined. So I stuck with it, and just all kinds of vegetables. I'd cut up vegetables and I'd make my own dressing. And, you know, I didn't have lettuce in it either. I mean, I would just cut up a variety of vegetables and eat those. And that was my main meal, my main thing. And then I would juice and blend those and
so
do all the
you're getting
different things.
serious nutrition.
I was getting serious nutrition. I also added some, very few, but a few supplements and an herbal combination, B17, I took that. So I took these things and then went through those, still removing the polyps, but a year onto my whole diet, big regimented change, I had 0 polyps.
Wow,
And
that's amazing. How did that make you feel?
It made me feel great. It was really a blessing.
The fruits of your 1 year of labor, of being so
right.
disciplined and strict eating, paid off quickly.
Very much. And I was ready to shout it from the mountaintops because I had beat genetic cancer. And to be honest, when I started out, I wasn't sure, but I'd been doing tons of research on my gene, figure out what it was and what it was all about. It had only been discovered in 2002. And so I wasn't really sure what the effect would be, but I started looking into this new science called epigenetics. And epigenetics is, it simply said, it's being affected by your environment to change your genes. Well, the first thing that you can control about your environment is what you put in your body. And so I was doing that. So I started feeling like, okay, this can probably work. And so when it did work, I was just thrilled. Now, the interesting thing is, the doctor who did that colonoscopy, I thought he would be, what did you do? Tell me all about it. Because I told them that I was doing diet. I was really making big changes there. And he walked in, handed my husband the pictures of my colon. He just said, "You're clear," and walked out the room. That's the only words he said. And I was still reeling from the anesthesia, but I wanted to scream at him, "Don't you want to know about what I do so you can share that with your other patients?"
What's your message to cancer patients that may have been told they have some kind of a genetic cancer? What is your message that you want them to take away from this interview?
Well, I tell friends of mine who complain about, well, you know, the genes in my family, and I just shake them up and say, look at me, look what I did, and you can do it too. You just have to make some changes in your life.
Wow. Can you now see that even genetic cancers can be turned around with epigenetic influences such as diet and nutrition? What a tremendous encouragement for you and for me, and a powerful reminder of the truth that cancer is not a death sentence.
I immediately began a program that involved spiritual, mental, and physical health. And I want to be very clear, spiritual was first. And I did end up really attacking my diet. For the first few weeks, I was on an all-raw diet. Okay. I postponed the Boston trip. I did go. I wanted to be responsible. So 40 days, I went to my team at Garden of Life, and I told them what had happened to me. They were freaked out. I said, listen, God has already paid the price for me. I am healed. You're going to see it, but I need to step away from work. 6 weeks, you won't hear from me. No emails, no texts. And for me, Ty, that's a miracle if I can go 30 minutes without that, much less 6 weeks. And I did the opposite of what most cancer patients do. You see, cancer patients go and basically submit themselves to the convention. And it's easy. Well, what do you mean it's easy? You have side effects and hair loss. No, it's easy because you let someone else tell you what to do. You let somebody else tell you how your side effects are going to go, what's going to happen, what your outcome's going to be, what your prognosis is. They can do radiation, chemotherapy, and surgery, but they're doing it. You don't have to think for yourself. There's no individuality. You're just a number. But I said, you know what? I'm doing this. I'm going to go after it in every way. 12 to 14 hours a day, Ty. Spiritual, emotional, healing, nutrition, and detoxification. I started with spiritual. I had written a prayer that really was a combination of scripture and some great teachers, and I quoted it 3 times a day out loud, and I honestly felt like the demons in hell were holding their ears like a dog whistle to a dog. I mean, I was storming the gates of hell to get well here. And some people will say, but Jordan, I don't share the same faith as you. All I can tell you is, if you're desperate enough, you will find God on your knees, because I believe, in essence, cancer is a spiritual disease. Cancer attacks a spirit like nothing else. And I'll give you an example. You go in for a physical and you're told you have terminal cancer. You walk out of there different. I mean, you literally, it's like your body and your spirit have been hijacked. When you have a headache after a cancer diagnosis, it's not a headache. It's spread to the brain. If your elbow hurts, you don't have a bruise or a broken bone. It's cancer, it's spreading. You wake up every morning like you're looking behind your back, over your shoulder, when is this disease gonna kill me? And I believe, Ty, that people who are diagnosed with cancer, they either make up their mind immediately that they're gonna conquer, or they begin to die that minute. I didn't say the word cancer very much during those 40 days. I didn't call myself a cancer victim. People go around and say, my son's autistic, I'm diabetic. And if you're gonna have a title or a label, don't make it that. It's as if you're saying and believing and receiving that. I didn't receive it. I spent 40 days working my rear end off. I literally was in a sauna, infrared sauna 2 hours a day. I was doing amazing raw food cocktails, phytotherapy or herbalism, consuming an all raw omnivorous diet. I went after it. But you know what I didn't do? Suffer in misery. I had more joy and more peace during my 40 days of healing than most people have with all the money and all the stuff in the world. I was facing a death sentence, 100% chance, and I decided to live. I chose it from the beginning. I walked it out. I prayed those 3 times a day. I went back over every memory that I had in my life. This is work, starting from 2 years old. And any time anyone hurt me or I had hurt them, I wrote the experience down and I prayed until I felt peace. Ty, I'm talking about when I was 10 years old and my baseball coach told me, if you strike out again, I'm gonna do something terrible to you. I mean, we actually store cellular memories, emotions, and failures or unforgiveness that turn to bitterness, and we store it, in my mind, like our body grows cancer cells. And I felt like if we fear a malignancy, we should fear unforgiveness and bitterness much more. I dealt with issues. It took me days, and I dealt with every one. I'm talking about thousands of memories. And people say, well, Jordan, what does it have to do with my health that someone turned me down for the prom when I'm 16? Well, what did it make you feel like? Did you say you were worthless? Did you decide you weren't good enough? There are people out there, Ty, that have had marriages with infidelity. They've had their spouse divorce them. They've had their parents tell them they don't love them. These are serious, and we store them in our body like a virus on a hard drive computer. And if we don't take care of it, they will eat us away.
If you've ever had the blessing of seeing a newborn baby come into the world, you know the feeling of how overwhelming your desire is to protect that helpless child from danger. As a father, I can tell you that that feeling never goes away. The more that child needs you to keep them safe and secure, the deeper the love becomes. But what if someone was going to take your child from you? What if they were going to inject and expose your child to harmful toxins that could threaten their life? What if you knew the treatment they would force could take your child's life? What would you do? This was the heart-wrenching situation that Todd Jones faced when his 2-year-old daughter, Janae, was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
It's something where everything just blurs, your energy just leaves your body, you're in shock, it's traumatic, and you just look at each other and you don't know what to say. And it happens to so many parents now, it's horrible. I guess it's one of the fastest growing, segments in the hospital.
Childhood cancer.
Child oncology is just growing and out of control. So, you're speechless, and I even called my boss. I was supposed to be at a trade show, and I was bawling. I said, man, we just got some bad news. One of the first things we grabbed onto was the Life One product, for enhanced immune system support. And because that has such an amazing track record, and I think it was Dr. Michael
Farley.
Yeah, Farley, and his oncology surgeon partner from Florida,
Dr. La Rochelle.
Yeah, La Rochelle. Those guys put it together, I think, right? And they just had their 10 years of use and just amazing results. And so that, with Living Fuel together, we said, okay, we're gonna help little Janae's immune system right away, because what happened is we were told she had to get into treatment. We knew she had to get something done, you know, and we also had no track record or experience like any parent, you know, nobody knows. So we said, okay, let's get her on the treatment. And the treatment it's an intensified treatment for 30 days where they use vincristine, chemotherapy and steroids. And that little child just got loaded up with that stuff daily.
You had mentioned earlier about the difference between Janae when she was going through treatment and then the other kids in the ward.
Right, that was for us, it was a tell-all right there, because we were watching the other children and we could see what was going on in the hospital. For example, the food right away. If you're a parent, you need to pay attention to this, because most hospitals just have hospital food, and that stuff is, you know, it's French fries and hamburgers, it's corn dogs and chips and chicken strips and canned green beans and homogenized pasteurized milk, you know.
With ice cream for dessert.
With ice cream for dessert, or Jell-O or canned fruit chunks with corn syrup and GMO everything. Yeah. So you really want to pay attention to not just letting those children that are being treated just have that stuff. With the, as you know, we talked about the steroids that create a desire for salty food. So, you know, parents are just wanting to, you know, keep the child happy or satisfied during this horrible treatment period. And so they get that salty stuff and all that denatured junk food. And even the hospital staff, doctors, the hematologists, oh, they need that because they need something. They're going through all that, just let them have it. And I'm like, this is not the kind of advice I really feel good about. Yeah. So that's why we got these big syringes and we fill them with living fuel. And we put stevia in it, you know, to sweeten it up. Yeah. I mean, we stayed clean.
So you were putting living fuel in syringes and giving it to Janae orally?
Yeah, and she was just sucking it up and she loved it. I mean, it was, we prayed about it too, by the way. When you're in a situation like that, there's so many moments where you don't know what to do. And if you know the power of prayer, you gotta use it in these times. You gotta just say, Lord, we need your help, guide us on this, okay? Because this is how you help other people when your conviction and your faith is involved. And then you get, I mean, we were blessed because in this very challenging moment, we were demonstrating that we could make a difference too.
So you said you were using living fuel and syringes. Did you use Life One as well?
Same deal, you bet.
Okay.
Yeah, and we kept that going on alternatingly. And
during her treatment, during the chemo?
Absolutely, during the chemo. And I have to recall here, she did get it during the chemo, for sure. She got it throughout the whole 3-year treatment. But after the first month, and I shared this with you too, we made a decision that we wanted to, since the cancer was so far down and in remission, as they say, and they told us themselves, that we were like, okay, you know what? Thank you for your business. We're good now. We're going to go ahead and build her up naturally now that the cancer and half of her, you know, system has been, you know, chemoed, chemically cleansed. We're going to go in and put in the natural good stuff now and see how we can get her to respond there. Well, the hospital didn't like that. When that happened, it wasn't 3 days later, and there was that very, very, very loud, aggressive knock at our door. I'm thinking, that doesn't sound like anybody I know. Nobody knocks like that. Almost sounded like a boot. So I went to the door and it was the Office of Child Services. And they came and they said, look, the hospital called, you have taken your child out of treatment and you need to bring your child right back to treatment. I'm like, well, we're finished with that treatment. We're just gonna continue on with another treatment, right? Parents, I even looked up the Alaska statutes. Parents have the legal right to decide how their children get treated. What I didn't know is it doesn't matter what the statutes say. The administrative truth about that is that the child is a ward of the state. And so you don't have that decision to make. And it got kind of dicey at that point as well, because I certainly wasn't into causing more stress than my wife and I had already had. We were, you know, really still in trauma with our little one here. But we were very hopeful because the cancer was down and we were getting things going up in the right direction as far as we were certainly concerned and convicted about. But the Office of Child Services told us right up front, we will take both your children and they will both go in foster care if you do not get that child right back in to the hospital.
Take both of your children?
Both of them. So I'm thinking, wow, these guys are making a statement pretty hard right in my face, right up front. And I remember calling you that night and saying, dude, this is what's happening, you know? And I remember you weren't impressed either. But I made a decision there to not rock the boat and cause more dismay. I could never imagine my 2 young girls in the care of other people. I went to 2 lawyers and got very well informed about this. And they said, yeah, we can get your daughters back. $800,000 and 2 years later is pretty much what you can count on because of all the BS that
And who has that kind of money?
That's right. I mean, it's already bad enough when you're stuck in this treatment program for 3 years. So we got her back into treatment, and we continued with the regimen, and we continued to replace a lot of the hospital food with stuff that we would bring from home.
So you're continuing on chemo?
Yeah, we're continuing on it because it's a 3-year regimen. Well, actually 2.5, and then it kind of sort of fades into 3. It seems like forever. So we would observe the children, and we could see that our daughter was very resilient because there were episodes where she would get heavy dosages and then the steroids on top, and you could see how it really wipes out the whole, you know, the natural state of the child was very low energy and just depleted, and but she would bounce back quick. As this evolved in the treatment time, and we noticed that the other children weren't eating at all anymore, they had to get feeding tubes. I mean, you could just count them. It was like all of a sudden in that month, 3 or 4 more kids were getting the feeding tube. Well, guess who didn't have to get the feeding tube? Because she was still doing it and she didn't need it. She was doing Life One and Living Fuel and whatever else we get in there. The pharmacist, though, came up and said, what are you guys giving her? You know? And I'm like, let me think. Okay. How much am I going to say today? But we were pretty cool. We shared, and it was, because it's all natural and it's all food, you can't really say much.
Okay,
we weren't
good.
We weren't doing isolated synthetic, vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. That's junk anyway. We were doing, the full-fledged flavonoid phenol spectrum,
yeah,
if you will. So she stayed on that and did great. Praise God, our kid made it, and we saw a couple that didn't, and that just makes your heart break, And that's why I was happy when you shared with me that you were doing another docu-series, and I was more than happy to, show up and say, hey, Ty, man, this is what we did, and hopefully we can help some other parents keep the faith, and you keep doing the right things, and you take care of your child as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, we're what, 4 years later now?
4 years, yeah.
She's 6 now?
She'll be 6 this September.
Okay, so then...
We're a whole year since treatment. Last spring was the last part of the treatment.
Okay.
So we're a whole year now and a couple months out of treatment. And she's playing t-ball, and she jumps on the trampoline with her big sister, well. And she runs all over the place, and she's at school, and she's doing great, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that she's doing well. I want a picture.
Yeah, you're going to get a picture.
Yeah.
I'll give her one of her sport pictures with an autograph.
I want her to sign it for me.
That's right.
Tell her to autograph
Yeah,
it.
because she'll know someday that you were part of that,
That's great.
Support network, and that'll be a beautiful thing.
One of the things I prize most about my life is freedom. It's the gift that countless brave men have fought and died for, perhaps because life loses all meaning without it. You've seen the violation of children and their parents when it comes to conventional cancer treatments, but it doesn't stop there. Did you know that adults, men and women today, are being subjected to the most harmful treatments totally against their wishes, without any consent? And in the case we're about to show you, when the patient is totally unconscious? Anne Fonfa's story is a startling example of the horror of being forced into a treatment against your will. You're about to hear the abhorrent situation she was put in, and the tremendous courage this woman had to hold on to fight for her freedom, specifically the right to choose her path. You'll see what the result was for her.
I was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 44 years old. Didn't know a single person living with cancer. And I, of course, got a professional diagnosis, had a lumpectomy before I even knew my name. When I woke up from that and found out that the doctor had removed 18 lymph nodes from my left arm without my express or informed consent, I just felt really uncomfortable with the way they were doing it. And they had told me on a Thursday that they had an opening for surgery on Monday, which I understood to mean, uh-oh, you have the worst cancer in the universe, and I didn't know that that's what they did with all women or men with breast cancer, rush us into treatment. So I saw an oncologist, and the oncologist said to me as I walked in, oh, we'll start you on chemo next week. And I said, doc, I have a problem. And he said immediately, oh, it doesn't matter. And I said, no, I just have to tell you what it is. I'm chemically sensitive. I respond badly to every kind of cleaning product, anything people are wearing on their neck or their hair, their laundry detergent. Everything's bothering me. Wet paint will cause me to fall to the ground. And he said, oh, it doesn't matter. I said, oh, goodbye, doc.
You're still going to do it.
Have to go. It was great. I walked out and I decided that's not for me. And I started to explore what else I could do. And I was astonished.
You fired your doctor at that point.
Exactly. It probably would have fired me, but he was an idiot. I mean, it doesn't matter. It was my life. It mattered to me. And I met a Chinese herbalist at the San Antonio Breast Cancer Symposium in 1998 in December, and he said, I think I can help you. So by April of the next year, I said, I need help. And I went to see him. And in the first prescription that he gave me, I made a tea. When I drank that tea, my entire body turned into a hive, a giant hive, every inch. So of course that was scary. But 3 days later, I realized my chemical sensitivity symptoms had completely changed, and the intensity had reduced by about 65%. So now I have a normal life. I can function like everyone else. I'm not going to pass out if you were wearing fragrance 40 feet away from me, which was what my life was like. And in addition to that, over time, I never got any more tumors. And I'd had an MRI when I started the herbs because I wanted to prove something. And at the end of the time, I had another MRI, and by then I was completely proven cancer-free. That was September 2001. Ironically, I got that diagnosis September 12th, 2001 in New York City.
Wow.
There's no traffic, no cars, no buses, no taxis. I walked to the hospital, and my doctor came from New Jersey, and she said to me, we can't find anything in cancer. We're going to call you no discernible disease. So they didn't give me NED, which is the usual diagnosis, because I didn't do chemo, I didn't do radiation. We don't know how you're really doing. I knew how I was doing. I was going to live.
Anne's story is a reminder for all of us that no matter what your situation is that you're being pushed into, you do have the ability to take your life and your health into your own hands. And thankfully, Anne is alive today, decades after diagnosis, to tell her story. Here's a couple that I refer to as Romeo and Juliet. When Trevor was told that he was going to die, he and his wife resigned to that fate, and they set out to live their last moments together. If it wasn't for their computer, Carol says, they wouldn't be alive today. Stories like this are what motivate me to get up in the morning, because you're going to see, without your voice and without my voice, millions of people are going to continue dying without hope. But in the lives of those that have received the truth about cancer, we have educated, exposed, and even eradicated cancer. That is the mission that you and I are on. Now wait till you hear this amazing story and how every odd was stacked against this incredible couple.
Trevor's an engineer, and he said to the doctor,
I said to him, there has to be a different way, another way to do things. And he said, no, this is the way. So it's like, no, I'm going to do it my way. And that was a driver. But everybody believes somebody in a white coat has the answer, and that's not necessarily so.
And so we asked how long if we didn't do the operation, and we were told 18 months to 2 years at the most.
No, it was 18 months. It was like
So-
less than that.
18 months and you better act now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
they instill this sense of urgency to undergo their protocol.
But the one thing about it, we had somewhere to go. Instead of staying in England.
where all the family were like pushing us to go for chemo, get the blood out, especially Trevor's family. No, he needs to have chemo, he needs to do what the doctors say.
Taking a step back, we were able to go and back home and take some time away from everybody.
Back to Dubai.
Yes.
And make some decisions. Even there, the doctors there.
But first we spoke to our sons and we told them our decision to take the 18 months. We started giving away money to our sons, and
Did
we were going to live our life. I was going to go with him. I was going to take some time.
Tell me that story.
What I said was that take the 18 months and celebrate, live life to the full, do things that we always said we wanted to do. And for me, I was going to walk straight into the desert. If it got to a point where it was painful or something I couldn't do, I was going to walk straight into the desert, not bother anybody, and that's the way I was going to do it. But my wife decided, no, I'm coming with you. Not mainly straight into the desert, but I don't want to be left around without you.
I just got to work, and then I started meeting people that have cured their own cancer online. My computer saved his life. It wasn't me, it was the computer, it was the internet, it was the Facebook pages. I kept a journal, basically for emails for my family, and then when I realised what was happening to him, he lost 19 kilograms in weight. He never was sick for one day, and he got better and better, and he got fitter and fitter. He was playing 11-a-side football.
What did you decide to do?
We changed his diet first off, completely cut out all processed foods. He only ate organic, chicken, fish, vegetables, salads, fruits. We juiced every day. He drank smoothies, nuts, dried fruits.
Basically, what I wasn't eating, I changed my whole diet.
We got a naturopathic doctor on board, and she did the tests and found out he was completely.
I think that was the big turning point.
He was completely
went through a point
depleted in vitamin D.
So there's a blood test of everything. I think it covered all different spectrums, and they found out what was depleted. So the high doses came into vitamin C or.
We didn't know what we were doing. We were just taking it off the internet.
Right.
If I'd had your input, I would have known exactly what to do, but I found other sources. 10 months afterwards, I came across cannabis oil.
Cannabis oil?
Cannabis oil.
But that's not quite true, because we went past it. We came across it.
After 6 months, I came across it, and I was trying to figure out how to get it. And I'd sourced somebody in Spain, and then I was trying to figure out how could I get it. I wasn't going to take it to Dubai, how I could get it to the UK.
Right.
So I was going to break the law and fetch the cannabis oil myself. But then he was getting better, so we didn't need to do it then.
But there was that one thing that was said to you.
Yes, one guy said to me, I can bring it to you, but if I'm not prepared to risk imprisonment if you're not prepared to risk imprisonment for somebody you love, why should I? And that made me realise I need to risk it, you know. But I knew if I went to prison in England, I'd get out. I'd have a slap on the wrist and I'd get out. But I knew if I tried to do it to Dubai, there's no chance I wouldn't get out of prison there.
Did you make it yourself?
No.
No, okay.
No. It was made by a legal cannabis oil maker. And she also wrote the foreword, because eventually I published my journal that I was keeping for emails for my family. And I self-published it because I knew that we were onto something and people needed to know what we'd done and how we'd done it when the doctor said there was no other way.
So what is the name of the book that you've published?
The book's called Taking Control by Alicia Sade. Alicia and Sade are my two beautiful granddaughters.
Did you take apricot pits or apple seeds?
No, B17 capsule.
The capsule, B17.
Yeah.
Okay.
And high doses of vitamin C, 20,000 milligrams of vitamin D.
We just had our vitamin D here at breakfast. We're taking it everywhere we go. Yeah, we do. So the combination of the changing of the diet, the vitamin C, vitamin D, the hemp oil, the vitamin B17, all of that in combination, and keeping a positive mental attitude.
And having lots of love and support.
Oh, I can see that. It's evident.
Big.
It's evident.
It's key,
And he's well. He's 2 years now, cancer-free.
Yeah, you look really healthy.
He does.
You know, my weight initially, I think it was just under 100 kg.
Do you know, he started looking younger and younger, and I started looking older with the stress.
Not at all.
No. What if you were a medical doctor going through medical school and you were diagnosed with advanced so-called terminal cancer? And what if you knew that your most trusted colleagues and mentors would laugh at or mock you should you decide to treat cancer in an outside-the-box type of fashion? Or perhaps just as damaging, be convinced that you're going to die and grieve your loss in your presence? How would you deal with that? What would you do? This is the true story of Dr. Robert Gorder, who was diagnosed with terminal testicular cancer and given only 6 months to live.
I'm originally from Holland, Amsterdam, where I did my medical training. And then I did extra training in oncology in an anthroposophical hospital in Basel, in Switzerland. And then I started my own clinic. But almost on day number 1, I was diagnosed myself with already far advanced called germ cell carcinoma. So they usually start from in women from an ovary or men from a testicle, and they grow very, very fast. And so when I was diagnosed, they said, well, 3 months, with some luck, maximum 6 months. And we do a chemo, do this, we do that. I said, no. Because I knew as a doctor what I would go through. And I thought, well, even if it's true that I live 6 weeks longer, but on the blood of others, I'm not afraid of death, and then I'd rather die than statistically a few weeks earlier. But so they were all said I was crazy. But I thought, no, there are other options. So like I also had already this idea, the root of cancer is in an immune suppression. So I should improve immune function. So I did. So I treated myself with mistletoe, Fiscum alba, mistletoe injection. I did hypothermia, so I went in a hot water bath. So my temperature was up to 40 degrees, and I did a few things, and yeah, remarkably, I got better and better, and probably about a year and a half later, I was free of cancer, because I didn't check every day, because I thought, well, no, if I have to die, I'll die, so I won't change anything. But it was then clear that after about a year and a half, when I really checked and so, everything was nothing could be found. So, and also I was perfectly back in order. So
how many years ago was this? What year was
43 years ago.
43 years ago. Did you ever go back to see the doctors that told you were crazy?
No, because they all had died by now. They were, because about this little nothing, and I just started as a doctor. So, and these all big professors, they were all in the 50s and the 60s, and they all, when I said I don't want chemo, they said, like, how stupid, but probably I was right and they were stupid. But anyway, who knows? But but also, I don't feel I should have any revenge or any that I did it better. So I went my way and it worked.
I'm sure that you have things in your life that you're passionate about. Maybe your career is one of the most important things in your life. But I have to tell you, nothing puts a halt to ambition like cancer. I've heard it said that when a man has his health, he has 1,000 dreams. But when he's lost his health, he has but one. Lourdes Colón had taken on some major roles as a Hollywood actress and had just taken off on her long-awaited break when she got the devastating news that she in fact had cancer, and if untreated, it would be terminal. At this huge turning point in her life, she put her acting career on hold, gripped her daughter's hand, and began the fight of her life.
I loved sugar.
Who doesn't love sugar?
Oh my gosh. Mine was extreme. I would eat 95% of my intake was sugar. So it was like if I had breakfast, I would eat 12 sandwich ice creams for breakfast.
Wow.
Because I felt I'm skinny, I don't gain weight, I'm good. And not realizing the destruction I was doing to my body. And we'd go out for dinner and he would have a meal, and as my husband would have his meal, I would have my brownie with ice cream on it, and that's what I had for dinner.
All right.
So that was like day in and day out, and then it really took a toll.
When you were diagnosed, did your oncologist suggest that one thing you might do was to give up this sugar?
My advice when I was diagnosed with cancer, because I was really, really skinny, and again, I didn't know that I was losing so much weight because of the cancer, was, look, you're really skinny, go out, eat as much ice cream as you can, enjoy yourself, put on the weight. And when she told me that, it was interesting because I thought, well, no, sugar feeds cancer, so I'm not going to do that. I didn't tell her that, but I was like, wow.
That doesn't make sense.
No, and here they're not telling me, get out there, start eating healthier. They were like, eat the sugar, put on the weight. I pursued completely non-toxic treatments. Anything that said shrinks tumors or fights cancer, I took. And it had to make sense. If something you have to add sugar to it, I'm like, I won't do it. But if it was more like, it was all about detox and cleansing out the cells, getting the body back to normal, when it started making sense to me, I'm like, this makes sense, this is what I gotta do. Because, and it's interesting because everything I searched out, every last one of them was all about detox. Revamping your body, getting the stuff that's in there that's been there forever out. I read this book called Kill Cancer, Not People. I had so many books I read.
Is that Bob Wright?
I think so.
I think Bob Wright wrote that. Yeah.
And there's, I mean, I have so many books at home. And I did so much reading, like that's all I did on a daily basis. There was one that talked about doing a colonics on a daily basis. So I went and got the Kalima board, and I started doing the colonics every day. And I noticed the moment I did that, I did start feeling a difference, because before that, because they had did the PT CAT scan, it was still kind of, even though they say it's out of your body after 45 minutes or whatever, so not true. It continued, I could continue feeling the process of the growth of the cancer. So when I finally got the Kalima board and started doing it daily, it started flushing things out, and I didn't feel so, I didn't feel the pain, I didn't feel the swelling, I didn't feel the agony, I felt that things did start shrinking. Yeah. I learned about wheatgrass, and
wheatgrass.
Yeah,
okay.
Wheatgrass was a really big part of the things that I did in fighting cancer.
So, Lourdes, when you were diagnosed with cancer and you were a sugar addict before, and now you changed the way you're eating, give me kind of a typical day in the diet of Lourdes Colon.
If I ate, in the beginning I did a lot of raw, because raw was very important because of the live enzymes. And I got used to where I got that I was going to lose a lot of weight. I was very thin already, but when you lose a lot of the toxins, you lose weight. So I had to put in my head, it's okay to lose weight as long as I'm healthy. I would do wheatgrass every morning and every afternoon. I didn't do it in the evening because it gave you a lot of energy. I would do brown rice. I didn't do any more white rice, because it's, I only learned that it was not as healthy, but white rice breaks out into more high sugar, just like potato does. So I avoided those kind of things. I did a lot of avocado after the 3 weeks. In the beginning of the 3 weeks I didn't, because it doesn't, even though avocado is amazing for you, because of the oils, it slows down the detox process. And for me, it was really important to be detoxed. So, but avocado, because it has the good fats, I put a lot of that in. I did that with a lot of the stuff that I would make. Just blend everything with avocado, it all tastes good.
Yeah.
So I didn't do any animal products. Like no animal products, no dairy, none of that.
What advice would you have for somebody that's been recently diagnosed and they go and, they only get option A or B, and then we'll get you to tell everybody what option C is, right? So they only get these normal options, the standard protocol. What advice would you give to somebody that's been diagnosed? Where should they go for information, and what questions should they ask their oncologist?
If they're diagnosed with cancer, this is their journey, this is their life, this is their health, and it's so important to educate yourself. I mean, start doing the research, find out what other people have done, find out what doctors they've seen, get questions from them, because a lot of times when you go to, like the doctor I went to in the beginning, which I let go of, I thought was a great doctor, because he was so kind and very caring and just listened, until I said I wasn't going to do chemo. And then
he got upset.
He was completely like a 180. And so I got clear at that moment that he was really for me. If he was really Team Lourdes, he would listen to me. He'd try to see how he can work with me. Instead, it was more like, oh wait, you're not doing it my way? And then it just became this other person. So I was like, oh, so you weren't being kind because you really care. You were being kind because I wasn't doing your chemo.
Obeyed.
Yeah.
Right.
And in the moment I told something different. So I let go of that doctor, and I didn't see a doctor for a while because I decided I'm going to find the right doctor. And until then, I'm going to do it my way. And I really advise people that they should educate themselves, find out other people that have done it naturally, who they saw, what were the questions they asked, what are the things that they need to know. Because it's, the more educated you are, the more educated decision you're going to make. Because doctors are going to put the fear in there. And because of fear, you're going to make the wrong decision, because fear does not let you think right. And I got real clear on that, because they were telling me, at that time I was stage 3B, right, almost stage 4. And then when I went to him again, he's like, oh, that's it, I'm done. There's no way turning back. But when you're at that stage and they're putting this fear in you, like, you have to do this, and this is the only way to do it, and I've had people that tried the other stuff and they died. I mean, you should have seen the conversation I had with them, and I was like, wow, we are so not working as a team here, because everything that came out of his mouth was very, very negative. And I feel that when you have a good doctor, everything that comes out of his mouth, he's optimistic, he's very positive. Let's see what works with you. We can't just put everybody in the same little box and say, chemo for everybody, radiation, no. And for me, it never made sense to use a treatment that's going to destroy my cells when cancer's already destroying my cells? Why would I add to the fire? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm healthier now after cancer than I was before I ever had cancer.
I was doing essential oil therapy. I was on infrared heating mats. I was trying to exercise the best I could on a mini trampoline, 20 to 30 minutes a day, everything you can think of, everything that I knew. I put together that program. And you know what else I did? I found a doctor, Dr. Emil Shandell in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He would give me not only one blood test, but test it 3 ways every 2 weeks. And then there was the 40-day CT scan with contrast. So I could do it exactly the same way, same radiologist, although he didn't realize I wasn't under an oncologist's supervision at the time. So first 2 weeks, program hardcore. I go get my blood drawn. I'm praying the whole time. Now remember, my number was about 278, so to speak, my HCG, which is typically the pregnancy hormone, but in testicular cancer, oftentimes it is elevated. So I took the blood test. 3 days later, which was the 2-week mark, I was going to get my results. So I see my phone ring, Dr. Shandell's name comes, I begin to shake. Now I had a lot of peace and a lot of faith, but man, when you're going to hear those results, look at what was riding on this. So I answer and he says, Jordan, I said, yes. He says, I got your results. I tested 3 ways, but you said you were in the 260s, 270. I'm getting 32, 20, 26. And I said, praise God. And then I told my parents, I told my wife, and then I said, but wait a minute. What if he tested it a different way? What if it's not comparable with the methodology? Doubt began to creep in. But no time for that. 2 more weeks of hardcore spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical nutrition, detoxification, healing. Go get my blood drawn again, praying, 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 wanting this to be a positive result. I got a call. It was on a Friday afternoon. See Dr. Shandell's name on my caller ID. I answer. He says, Jordan. I said, yes. He said, I have your results. He said, I'm getting 0, 0, 0. It was time for celebration. A couple days later, I had my CAT scan. I went in, and I don't know about you, but if you've ever had an enclosed CAT scan or MRI, I guess I'm more claustrophobic than I thought. That was awful. But I prayed the whole time. I don't believe in getting radiation or contrast fluid or drinking barium or any of that nonsense, but I needed to show the world what God was going to do in my life. 3 days later, I was going to get the results. And I look and I see normal, 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 normal. I dropped the packet. I started to weep. I hugged my wife. And I couldn't believe it, but yet I believed it. It's like nothing I could ever explain. I was free. This disease that I never claimed was a part of my life was now officially gone. I called 20 or 30 people that I had shared this with, and they were the best phone calls I've ever had. I mean, to be able to tell them what miracle had happened in my life. Some of them admitted to me that they were really concerned. Some of them were overjoyed and said they knew all along, but it was an awesome day for me. And my son Joshua, who was 4 or 5 years old at the time, I said to my wife, hey, can we pick up Joshua from school and take him to Toys R Us and buy him anything in the store? And she said, why? And I said, I can't explain to him what miracle I've just experienced other than telling him you can get any toy you want. Of course, he was excited, and he asked me why, and I said, Dad's experienced a great gift myself. God gave me a great gift today. And as I stand here today, Ty, I am convinced that what you eat, the supplements you take, IV therapies, hydrotherapy, certainly far infrared saunas and various exercises and various machines can make a difference in your health, can help you build your immune system. I'm convinced that emotional health is critical, but I can tell you something that probably no one else in this series will. Cancer starts with a spiritual disease. And if I were to be with somebody for 20 minutes after their diagnosis, I bet I could predict if they're going to live and thrive or suffer and die. Don't own the disease. Cancer is not who you are. And I think you've realized after all these interviews, cancer isn't one disease. How could it affect somebody's blood, another person's bone marrow, someone's colon? How could it be a solid tumor in one person and not in another and be the same disease? The name cancer is evil, but it's evil for different ways than we think. You decide if you win or lose. And I think you're going to find the common denominator in people that are survivors or conquerors, as I like better, are those that decide to go after it and win. Don't sit back and let somebody tell you what to do, make the most important decisions of your life. You know what's crazy, Ty? If you try natural health with cancer and you die, they killed you. If you go conventional and you die, we did the best that we could do. Right. How is that possible? We lost loved ones. You've lost loved ones. And you know what? I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book soon. And I think the most appropriate title is To Hell with Cancer. That's where it came from, in my opinion. I want to help send it back. And I do believe that if somebody, if anybody wants to overcome this dreaded disease, you start by making the decision that cancer will not win. Cancer will not own you. You are not a cancer patient. You are more than a conqueror. And frankly, next time I hear somebody get diagnosed with cancer, my first encouragement is going to be, you say it, to hell with cancer.
I was told that I had base of tongue cancer tumors that had spread to my lymph nodes on my neck. And they were worried that it had already spread to the rest of my body and my organs. So they put me in a room with about 34 oncologists at this major hospital and put a camera down through my nose to have a look at the tumors that were at the base of my tongue. And a copy of the tumors all appeared up in a screen behind my head, and my wife saw them and she said they looked scary. And the head oncologist came to us and he said, you need to start radiation and chemo immediately because they're worried that it's spreading or else I would not survive. And we were in total shock at the time. We lost words and we just looked at each other. A few days later, I went to see another group of 11 oncologists at another hospital near my home, and they said the same thing. They said immediate radiation and chemo or you will not survive very long because this is a very dangerous type of cancer. It's already spread to your lymph nodes and we don't know where it is at this stage without further PET scans, MRIs, things like that. So I went home with joy and just in total confusion. Hopelessness, despair set in for a few days, didn't know what to do. So I decided to start, looking in the net, what are the side effects of radiation and chemo and what exactly is chemo and radiation. I discovered on the net Try Bollinger's Quest for Cancer Cures. And I listened to all his interviews with various cancer specialists all over America. And I was especially intrigued by some of them, and I learned so much. For treatment with chemo and radiation for the type of tumors I had, I would need a tube to breathe and a tube, they wanted to insert a tube in my stomach for food. So I rang the hospital and sent them an email, both hospitals, and I said I refuse the chemo treatment and the radiation. I'm going to do some research myself and seek a natural alternative to the chemo and the radiation. And that was it for a couple of days, and then they started ringing me and creating fear over the phone and saying things, you won't live very long. I went on total vegetarian food. I had a lot of fruit and nuts to eat, and I went on a 3-week fast, just water and taking these vitamins. And after the 3-week fast, I had lost about 10 or 15 kilos, and however, I was feeling good. And what I noticed after taking these products for about 6 weeks, the swelling at the left side of my neck began to decrease in size, and the swelling at my right decreased, and I was able to swallow much more easily, and my tongue was not swollen so much. So I got really encouraged by this because I was under no doctor's care whatsoever. So I continued this treatment until March. At that point, I decided, are these tumors decreasing, or has the cancer spread already? That was my major concern. My blood test went to Germany at the end of April, and I got a call from the doctor's secretary on the 8th of May. She said, your results are here from Germany. Would you like to come in and see them? And I said, of course I do. I got really excited, you know. And when I got there, I had to wait in the room for about 20 minutes for the doctor to see me. It felt like the longest 20 minutes in my life, you know. I just kept twiddling my thumbs. So eventually he called me upstairs to his office, and he opened this envelope. And he looked at me stunned. I said, doctor, what's the result? I'm sweating. What is the result? And he said, Henry, this is a miracle. He said, I've been a doctor since 1979. You are the first person that has come to this clinic that hasn't been messed around with chemotherapy, radiation, or surgery as a cancer cure. And I said, am I? He said, these are marvelous results. And he said, this report is a miracle. He said, it says numerous fragmented dead cancer tumors floating all over the blood. And then he said, it is the same result as if you've been having chemo and radiation treatment for the last 6 months. And I was in total shock. I just relaxed in the chair and I said, what does that mean, doctor? He says, your cancer market is barely registering on the scale, on the radar scale. And he said, I'm very shocked. And I said, well, what will I do now, doctor? He said, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it for the rest of your life and you live another 100 years.
But the work that he's done with the Truth About Cancer and the Quest for the Cures has been phenomenal. I send him emails all the time and thank him for everything that he's done, because he is bringing a message to the world that the world needs to hear. And he's bringing it in large doses. And he's connected with so many different practitioners and so many real lives that have been affected by his message. So I'm really grateful and so appreciative for the work that he's doing. You know, the world needs to hear this. And it's really, he's bringing a unifying movement to the globe, really, when it comes to cancer prevention. Very powerful. Oh, it's phenomenal. I mean, I followed it, and I'm learning so many things from the interviews that he's done with other doctors. To know that with my guidance and direction and their work, that they can turn their life around, that it gives them hope, that they can wake up tomorrow and feel good and know that they'll be there for their family and enjoy another day. It's giving them hope. It's a message of hope that they so desperately need to hear.
I lost 2 relatives in my family. 2 relatives have been actually deceased for cancer. I was actually living with one of them, and it was really hard to see someone just deteriorate just for being and going through the process of chemotherapy. And it was just something that I experienced and that I wish on no one, because just being in the same room with someone that is eventually, you know, going to die, and having that thought in your mind, knowing that cancer equals death, cancer is uncurable, and just seeing that person deteriorate is like nothing else. So I wish I could have had something like this documentary, something like this information that I could have watched myself and being able to share. Not only keep it to myself, but I could have been able to share it to those who needed it, especially my now deceased family member. Being able to be part of this project and being able to walk the path with the Truth About Cancer team, we've been able to experience all these stories, all these living testimonies of people that have been able to conquer cancer and that have been able to overcome this this burden in their life.
Yeah, I mean, my life has changed exponentially in these 3 months. Like, I remember before the San Diego trip, that was the first leg that I did with Alan and Ty and Travis. I went the night before to get KFC because I was like, I know I'm going to be eating a bunch of healthy food I'm not going to like, so I'm going to eat something that I like before I go. And then it's like Alan was saying, you know, you can read all this stuff about quackery and all this, cures for cancer, but seeing those testimonials and hearing them, it's just like, it's unbelievable. This whole thing's just been a great experience. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better team, a better life journey, just because, I mean, I just got out of school a couple of years ago, and I never thought that I would be on a trip like this. Like, it's like Alan says, it's a trip of a lifetime.
But when we went to San Diego this past spring, we had people coming up to us, to Ty, because they recognized them. These are people who had had cancer, who had gone to oncologists, chemotherapy, and been told there's nothing more we can do for you. You know, get your affairs in order.
It's a real deal, man.
Yeah.
And then they say, but we saw the quest for the cures, and we found out about a treatment or a doctor, and I'm alive today because of what you did in your series. And man, it brought it home in a way that nothing else could.
The amount of information we've got is just like staggering to look at. It's just like, for such a thing like cancer to be a death sentence across the board from almost every oncologist, from almost every doctor that hands it out, it's just insane. There's a system in place that's just completely broken. And so seeing everybody across the country with the exact same message.
In the world.
All over the world, yeah. And to just stamp some kind of treatment, chemotherapy or whatever, and just say this is the end-all be-all, one treatment for this one unified, disorder, disease, whatever you call it, is just so far-fetched and crazy. It's like the one thing we learned from this trip is that there's not one cure for cancer, there's a billion cures for cancer.
No doubt.
So it's a tool. It's a way to help people, but it's a way to help yourself. It's validation, someone like that saying, going through what I went through and being so unsure and jumping off the cliff, going from making over $100,000 to making nothing, and putting myself out there. But to have someone like Ty and Charlene and Cancer Truth say, we approve, you're doing a good job and we want you to continue. I mean, it means so much. And I met them in July of last year. They were at a conference and I went and I just couldn't wait to meet them. I mean, I was in tears, when I hugged Charlene. And I got an email when the quest came out. The first episode had aired and I had no idea. Charlene sent me a message and said, oh, we're gonna donate to Cancer Crackdown. I didn't even know. And wow, just humbling, very humbling, and confirmation that we're on the right path. So they donated to us and we went to Texas and for the donation ceremony, but the donation helped us to provide several people with supplements. There was a girl that we helped weighed 65 pounds and was trying to get to a clinic for treatment, and we helped her get some nutritional IVs to literally keep her alive to get to treatment. And without their donation, we wouldn't have been able to help her at that time. So it impacted lives immediately, and that's what they do, is they impact lives. And we appreciate them tremendously, tremendously. I don't think we would be able to continue at the level that we are and continue our mission and our goals of helping more and more people without them. I know we wouldn't. It was $10,000. They are our biggest supporters. and we appreciate them tremendously.
I remember since I've been young, I've felt this burden to, when I've seen suffering, to do something about it. There's been so many times in my life when I've looked at situations and I felt like there's nothing I can do about this, and I've just had to watch it, and it's been so hard for me, especially when, like, it's your loved ones and it's people closest to you, and you watch them and they're experiencing pain, and like, especially when you're young, you can't really compute that. You're looking at these people and being like, normally I can make these people happy, normally I can do something about this, but I feel powerless and I can't do something about this. And I wanted to find my purpose, you know, and I knew it had something to do with being a part of the solution and being able to help people that are going through suffering. When I came to understand about different things that people are suffering with, that there's taking away livelihood, cancer kept striking. Loved ones, I feel grateful that those desires of my heart got answered, like, and I got to do something, and I got to develop skills, and I got to use them for something that was meaningful, and that brought me the feeling that I could do something, and that I wasn't powerless, and that was one of the most liberating feelings. I just feel so grateful. I feel grateful that that other people have stood up, and that we collectively, like, we've supported each other. Like, everybody else is here because somebody else has stood up. Ty and Charlene have created a ripple effect that has touched a lot of people's lives, and it has changed the world forever. And I'm really grateful for them. I'm grateful for their friendship, and I'm grateful for the experiences that we've had.
Eventually, medicine will come to terms, humanity will come to terms with the fact that healing comes from within. And that us, the doctors and the clinics and the medications, are the ones that facilitate that process of healing. So it doesn't belong to us. It belongs to you as a patient. And my true role as a practitioner is to empower and facilitate that healing within.
So the big C word is never a death sentence. There's always a path. There's always a path. Some people are living with cancer as a chronic illness, right? So that's fine. It's the same as living with diabetes or high blood pressure or high cholesterol. If we can manage it and keep it at a microscopic level, you carry on with your life. It is not a death sentence.
It's hard for me to put into words what it's like for me to hear the stories that we just experienced. The path that my family has traveled has been emotionally intense. Literally every day we're exposed to the devastating heartbreak which results from people being lied to and misinformed. Charlene and I have literally shed tears hearing the stories of new friends that have come to us for help and for information, sometimes in a situation when a close loved one is trusting in a so-called treatment for cancer that is, in fact, worse than the cancer itself. It's those moments when you wish that these precious people that have sometimes just been diagnosed would be able to see all the information and be empowered with all the knowledge, so that with a full picture, in the absence of overwhelming fear, they could make the best decision for themselves or their family, whatever that might be. My purpose during this 9-day journey was to give you all the paramount information regarding cancer so that you and the entire onlooking world could see that there are answers, there are solutions, and there are roads to full recovery for all types and stages of cancer. With a full understanding of the treatments and preventions, with knowledge of the science and documented evidence that supports the validity of this path, an amazing opportunity exists to see lives restored. This is not just wishful thinking, where the patient quivers at the thought of cancer coming back and knocking at their door, which is pretty typical with the big three treatments that treat symptoms but not causes. Rather, what you have witnessed are survivors that have addressed the root causes of their cancer and have changed their lives, their diet, their habits, their thoughts and feelings, and have set out to heal their cancer holistically, many of them stating that their bodies are more healthy and lives are more happy than before their cancer diagnosis. You've seen the survivors cured of rare genetic cancers. You've seen late-stage cancers where people given as little as months, weeks, or even days to live and are alive today, not just years but decades past diagnosis, still having no signs of cancer in their body, with tests verified by the world's foremost cancer clinics. You've seen the children that have beaten cancer, and you've seen the children forced to undergo treatments against their wishes and their parents' wishes. You've seen people that have had their immune system compromised by hosts of experimental and harmful conventional therapies who have recalibrated and conquered their cancer in the most challenging circumstances, and they've shared their stories of being cancer-free today with a smile on their face. The truth is, this wasn't created for them or for me. It was created for you. And that's because this is about you. And because there is a fight for your life right now, whether you realize it or not. I can tell you now that your body knows it, and it knows the things that harm, and it knows the things that heal it. Now, what you do from here is totally up to you. Whether this was merely an interesting documentary with attention-grabbing information, or whether this was life-changing for you, well, this really depends on what happens now. It depends upon the choice you make in this moment. As in every present moment, you're given the ability to choose what will heal and what will harm you. It's my hope and prayer that the choices you make in your life and the life of your loved ones come from a place of knowing that your health is infinitely valuable. You are a gift to this world, and you can freely live the gift of your life, free from both the threat and fear of cancer. Wow, isn't it incredible to have heard these cancer conqueror stories, to experienced it with them, and to be uplifted and filled with hope? That's our message. Cancer does not have to be a death sentence. There's always hope. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining us these last 9 days to watch The Truth About Cancer, A Global Quest. This is the culmination of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. This is our gift to you. We hope that you've enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us. God bless all of you.
We went shopping. She helped me with everything for the wedding. I mean, we made lists. We went out 2 days and we got it all done. But this gown, she wanted me to be there to help her pick it out. And she just loved this gown. And it had a slit maybe up to here. It was down to her ankles, but it had this slit up to here. And her mother said it was scandalous. Yeah, she died. Now she was doing SEACT. She had radiation chemotherapy, but then she started doing SEACT, and it kept her completely cancer-free for many years.
About a decade.
But when Dad died, Jerry, Ty's mother, was no longer able to make the SEACT for her, and then the cancer came back, and then she died. Sadly.
She was suffering.
But that was Ty's father's mother, Grandmother Bullinger. So these are all the grandmas. That was my mother's mother. So those were the grandmas at the wedding.
There's you in your cool shades. She was always wearing cool shades.
Yeah, everybody loved that picture. He used to have it in a frame somewhere. They're waiting for me to walk up the aisle. I love that picture. You waiting? It's me and my dad. You can see it was 10 after 2. I was walking up the aisle. He was waiting. Just different pictures. That was my grandma, my dad. We were just married here. We were so happy. The back room and the family pictures. Let's see. This is the mom and dad, and then his sister and brother. We have a whole big picture, I think, yeah. There's mom and dad, granddaddy and grandmother, Kareth, 2 little flower girls, Grandma Helen, Aunt Pat.
Wow. It was, I guess it was kind of surreal when Dad got sick. So it didn't really, I guess it didn't really feel like it was happening until later, because it was so fast, you know? We went to Mom and Dad's house and Dad doubles over in pain. We take him to the hospital, we think it's gallstones, they take his stomach out. And they say it's cancer and he dies in 25 days. I mean, you don't even have time to think. I mean, it was just a whirlwind at that point. And I remember we were talking today about looking at natural treatments for cancer even at that time. And they weren't all that readily available on the internet because nobody got on the internet really in 1996. I mean, very few people were on the internet. There wasn't much information out there. I have no doubt that if we had had this knowledge and we had not had Dad's stomach removed, that we could have healed him naturally. I have no doubt that we could have. You know, I'm not there anymore today, but for a good long time, I was angry about losing Dad. I was angry about losing everyone else. I was angry that these truths are being suppressed. I was angry that people were dying because of money, because of the fact that the cancer industry is run by greed. It's really, greed is at the heart of this industry.
It's been the beauty that's come from the ash heap of death and loss and sorrow. And I just can't imagine life any other way. We know what it is to suffer, and so when people are out there suffering and groping in the dark for answers, we have light. That's what we bring in the darkness, the light of truth and life.
Well, I wouldn't have made it without her. Wouldn't have made it without you. Because the first couple of years were the hardest time. And she wasn't exaggerating. You know, I would come home and just cry, and she'd be there. So thank you. I love you too. Couldn't have made it without her. Everybody thought I was so strong, but I really wasn't. I just didn't cry in public. I cried in private. So. But I couldn't have made it without you. And that's why this is our mission together. And they were your parents too.
You were strong.
We were a good team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
We're still a good team.
Yeah.
Join the movement, support the mission, save lives. When you choose to own The Truth About Cancer, a global quest, you allow us to continue to research, interview, and share this life-saving information absolutely free. And as always, a portion of each sale gets donated to cancer charities that are doing real cancer research and are actually helping cancer patients each and every day. You're also covered by our full 90-day money-back guarantee, so there is absolutely no risk to you to check it out. If this is not everything that you hoped it could be, all you got to do is contact our friendly customer support team and we will refund every penny back to you. You have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. Please consider owning this series today and supporting us in eradicating this devastating disease. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.